right, Jason Brown. This is part 2 of our interview to talk about your transition from an avoidant attached individual to becoming anxiously attached to now working through more of a secure attachment. The first part of our interview really took us through that journey of what you experienced. Um, through those extreme spectrums of the attachment paradigm. This part will really help us hear your experience post the disillusion of the relationships you were in, right? So the aftermath of when you left the trail of heartbreaks as an avoidant and you broke hearts. And then also on the other side, when your heart was broken as an anxious, attached individual, what was your experience like on both of those ends? Please share.
That's a good question. That is a good question. I would say my experience with heartbreaking when I was an avoidant was easy, very easy. I'd say there was no lesson in it. There's no growth. There's no learning because you just kind of bury the pain, and sometimes there's not any pain at all. To be honest, so a lot of times it actually felt really good. As much as that sounds terrible, like it was like you go through a breakup, and it was like, cool, I'm free again. Like this is what I kind of came into it believing was going to happen. So, like I was saying before, oftentimes I would get into a relationship with people already in the mindset of like, yeah, this is not going to be long. This is just going to be fun. I'll tell you what, what I'm feeling at the moment, yeah, at that moment. Sure, for sure. Yeah. I like you a lot and all this stuff, but you know, words are way different than, actions over time. I learned that as I was anxious, so that it was like, it was mirroring my past. So breaking hearts was easy. When I would break up, it was like, I felt great. And not like because I broke their heart, right? Like that, I never liked doing that, but it was the inner feeling of being like, oh, cool. I don't have to check in with you. I don't have to, I can talk to whoever I want. I can do whatever I want, and I don't have to check in with anybody. No remorse about anything. So it was like that sense of freedom, right? I think most avoidance, that's what their true desire is the ability to have the freedom, to be like, oh yeah, I like you and I like you in my life, but like, I don't want to give up anything. I don't want to change how I live. And that's exactly how I thought. So when I look back, I'm like, and you can read up all this stuff. I was like, that's it to a T. That's literally it. You want the person for a very small aspect of them. It's not really even that person. It's just that little feeling that's just an additive to your regular life. But, obviously a single life and a life with a commitment to somebody else is different, right? It may not be very different, but it is different. And a lot of times, you don't want to give up the freedoms of the single life because of the commitment. So you want to have your cake and eat it too. And I would say that's a lot of times what avoidants try to do is they want to still live exactly how they've been living, but they want that piece, right? So they want all the positives and they don't want any of the negatives. So an avoidant was easy, but, and anxious is obviously the opposite, right? You attach to somebody, you dump all your heart and soul into them. And then what ends up obviously happening for most anxious people is they push them away because of it. And it's not necessarily because the intentions were bad. It just ended up being bad. So when I was anxious, it's seeing that like it almost becomes needy, right? That energy is very needy. And it's like, when I look at it, when I look back on it, it's like, oh yeah, my moods did fluctuate. They did fluctuate. When I was anxious, my moods fluctuate a lot, right? Like, oh, why did they text me 3 hours later? We usually text every 15 minutes, right? There. So you start like really analyzing these tiny things, and you just run it through your head, right? And that's exhausting. So, when you're avoidant, you don't care, right? Honestly, if my, girlfriend at the time didn't text me back for the whole day, I'd be like, oh, cool. Yeah, she's probably doing her own thing. And I wouldn't even think about it. I would just get a text sometime, and it's like, oh, cool. Yeah, what are you doing? Oh, just same old stuff. It was like nothing, like there was no difference. Where when I, became anxious, it's the total opposite. It was like, oh, like, why did she respond this way? Right? Why did they take so long? Why are they, doing this instead of this with me? So it's the total opposite. It's like you care so much that it ends up pushing people away, because it's like, just relax, right? Because when you don't know what it feels like to be secure, you don't understand what like that really is. It's that balance of like, yeah, go do your thing. Like, I don't need to, like, my mood doesn't rely on you. And until you really feel that, you don't really see what's happening. And so, being an anxious person, I would say it's very innocent, right? It's a very innocent thing. Attachment style, because it's all love, right? It's all, yeah, there is a selfishness in it, right? Because obviously the selfishness is that don't abandon me, I need you, right? So there is a bit of selfishness in it, but I think the intentions are good. So where the avoidance is almost the opposite, where the intention is to be like, cool, you just fit in this part of my life. I'm not going to give up any of this. You just fit in this part, right? I just want this part of you. Don't ask for anything else. I just want this part. Where the anxious person is most likely going to be, I want all of you. I want it all the time. And if I don't get it, I'm going to start freaking out, right? And that's exactly how I started feeling. And it was exhausting. It was really exhausting. So, I mean, my transition from being, obviously the two different types of avoidance, I was a fearful avoidant. So I had both, when I got rid of my avoidance, I became just, all that was left was the anxiousness. So, being anxious is way harder, way harder. Oftentimes, you'll see your avoidant ex get away with it. They just dump you and they're like, cool, I'm living life. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's like nothing ever happened. Where the other side is, your life's over. Your life's over till you heal. So, that's what I would say is the biggest experience between the two. The other end, it's like, nothing even changed. I don't even know what you're talking about. But the other end's like, my life's over. Life sucks for a while. And then, eventually as you heal, you're like, oh, it's not that bad. But it takes a while. I would say, this is the best way I can just say it. Days as an avoidant were just days. Days as an anxious person were weeks. Best way I can explain that.
Do you remember, as an avoidant, your experience when you discarded those relationships and the feelings of nostalgia or missing your exes? Did that come up at all? And the reason why we bring this up is, if you've studied attachment theory, they call it the avoidant discard. It happens sometimes very abruptly and sometimes triggered by nothing that the other person's doing other than a strong desire to be independent. So talk to us about your experience as an avoidant breaking hearts, and did you ever think and long for your former relationships again?
Yes, I'd say by default, every single one, every single one. Now it took a long time. I, as I, if you look up, oh, no contact this amount of time, I'm like, don't listen to that. Sure, that's probably a good average, but I would say, for most people, it's probably longer. And you'll hear those stories like, yeah, my ex reached out like a year later or like 6 months later. Like, the time is long. And that's how I would feel it, right? So, I mean, the first time, and I think too, why it might take longer. I'll just, from my own experience, I would have multiple people I was talking to. So, I forgot the term. It's like monkey branching or whatever. Um, so it was easy. It was a very easy transition. And there's no, like I was saying before, like there's no learning lesson in it. There's no pain to learn from because you just jump into the next thing. There's no time to process. There's no time to feel the pain because you're already on to the next thing, right? You're already on to something else and it's just starting something new again. So you're like, oh, cool. I get the best. I get what I want, which is leaving this person. And then I also get the best part of the relationship, which is the beginning for, most of it. Obviously a healthy relationship, sometimes the best part comes later as you develop, but you get that honeymoon phase. So it's like, oh, cool. You annoy me. You ask a lot of me. This person is going to show me the best of themselves. They're going to pretty much give me their best moments. They're all about you, right? And they're going to be all about you for however amount of time that takes. So it's like, it's such an easy transition, right? It's like, I don't like you. I like this person. And then I'm going to get the best version of them for however long that lasts. So that is what I would say is that feeling, but, it does go away. Right? It does go away. And then as you just run through people, what happens is like, okay, cool. I monkey branch. But then you're like, wow, that person had a lot of special qualities and it may be way down the line, right? 4 or 5 people down the line, or, maybe for other people, it's like, oh, maybe a couple X's ago. And then you look at it and you're like, what am I missing? And then you see it in that person, right? And you're like, oh, I had it all with them, right? And you may not realize it till way later, right? 6 months, a year, maybe a couple years later, where you reminisce on that. You're like, oh, that person gave me everything I want now. But, all that time's passed and you obviously just dump them like they were nothing. So it's like you feel that guilt where you want it, right? And I feel a lot of times, for me personally, and I've talked to some people that were also avoidant. There is a heavy sense of a guilt to it because you're like, yeah, I totally just discarded this person, but I do feel for them, but I feel guilty reaching out because I dumped them so harshly. So you want to reach out, right? But you feel this guilt of like, you almost protect them from yourself. It's like, I hurt you so bad, but now I just want to pop back in like nothing happened, so there's this guilt of like, okay, like I really miss you. And I genuinely sometimes did. Like I would actually genuinely miss my exes, but I felt guilty because it's like what I did to them, right? I just dumped them. And obviously they showed me, you know, everything was great, right? Everything was great with them. They showed me they were committed, that I was the person. They did so much things for me. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, that doesn't interest me. So even if I did miss them, there's always that like, is this really beneficial for them too? I'm the person that dumped them. Now I'm coming back like nothing happened. So there's this sense of kind of guilt and like, I think it's just the best. I just protect them from myself because when you really look at it, you're like, am I going to commit to this person? If you can't answer that, you shouldn't reach out, and I would just kind of send this text or maybe, I see an Instagram story or a post. I would like it, right? I would maybe comment something or send a text like, hey, how you been? Like, just thought of you, right? You just kind of pop back in and see how they gauge it. And some were like, fuck you, right? Some were like, or block. Like I was like, oh, cool. Good for you. Good for you. Like, I deserve that. But then a lot of them would be like, oh yeah, like, obviously the time has gone by and probably the feelings have quelled where you're just more neutral about each other and start talking again. But, I would say for me at that time, I wasn't reaching out to commit to you again. I was reaching out probably because I wanted something physical out of it. Like, oh, let's just be friends with benefits, So oftentimes it was more physical on my end. I wasn't like, oh, I miss you as a person. It was like, I miss what we had. I want that back, but I don't want to be in a relationship with you. When I was really avoidant, that's kind of what my mentality was. It's like, I miss the feelings. It's the same thing. It goes back to everything. Like, I want this part of you. I don't want the rest. I just want this little part. So give me this part, but save the rest. And I'm going to be around as long as I have that part. As soon as the other parts come around, I'm off again, detach on to the next one, So that was what I would say be my experience on that end.
What is one piece of advice that you would give anybody that's experienced the avoidant discard, right? Someone that's been broken up with abruptly from an avoidant person. What is something that you would tell them right now?
Don't wait around for them. You don't want them back. You don't. You think you do, right? But you really don't. Because I'll tell you why. Uh, if they come back very shortly, I will guarantee you they've done absolutely zero work at all, right? And that's for anybody, right? It's like perfect example. It's like, oh, cool. I got, if you get an F on a test and you generally tried your hardest, you're probably not going to get an A if you took it again right after you failed the test, right? There's time that you need to dedicate to learning the material, right? Understanding the material and implementing the material, right? So the same thing. If you just want to get them back and it's only been even a few months, even 6 months, right? Is that really enough time for them to change as a person? Probably not, right? So, and I've done this too. When I was anxious, like I wanted my avoidant back because it's like this. It's like you got a piece of candy. You were promised the entire bar. You just got a piece, and they just took it away from you. You're like, whoa, no, I want the rest of that. I want the rest of that. But it's not good for you, right? It's not good for you. So I would say for someone that just got discarded, just walk away. You have to. And it sounds brutal because I wish there was some hope in that, but you have to abandon hope. You really do. You have to. As soon as you abandon hope, you're going to start. It just forces you to start your healing journey. Like, don't be like, oh, I read something. I'm going to wait 90 days, right? I'm going to wait 2 months and I'm going to wait for that text. It's coming. I know it's coming, right? 90 days. Oh, and avoid it. Oh, I'm going to wait 3 months. Okay, cool. 3 months is the time. And you just sit there and you're just waiting for it, right? And you're like, cool. Anytime now, I'm just waiting for it. So like you get this false hope of like, oh, they're going to come back and they're going to be like, oh yeah, I actually did love you or I did care about you. You can't expect that from anybody. Yeah, it happens for sure. But like, don't expect that. And the faster you can abandon that thought, right? The faster it's just going to force you to heal, right? And focus all of your energy of where you're just waiting on them and hoping, just dump that into like, cool, it's done. Like, yeah, this is going to hurt. It's going to suck. It's going to suck a lot because like, obviously when you really close the door on something, it's gone, right? So it's like, you really have to be like, door's closed. I'm walking the other way. If they want to open it up again, they can, but you're already walking the other way, right? So just walk away, right? Don't, and obviously you also have to take these things for a grain of salt when you see these time limits, right? Or like, oh, this method, it's also someone selling a course. So they're taking you, they're monopolizing, or then they're making money off of your suffering by giving you hope. And if it doesn't work, you can also go, oh, it's because you didn't follow my steps, right? So it's like, just abandon that hope. That's going to be the best way to get them back anyway, because you have to think about what drove them away was probably you being too overbearing for them. And it may not be you. It's just, it was too much for them, right? They weren't able to accept what you were giving them. So they're like, this is too much. I'm walking away. So sometimes has nothing to do with you. Oftentimes it has nothing to do with you. It's just they want a level of intimacy that's so shallow and you want something more, and that pushes them away. So my advice, and as a person that recently is going through it, you know, you just have to like abandon hope. As dreary as that sounds, like abandon hope and walk away. Like don't look up videos like how long does it take? What are they feeling? Be like, cool, this person is dead to me now. Right? This person's gone. Like imagine like imagine you walked up to a gravestone. You wouldn't go, one day they're gonna pop back up. Right? One day they're gonna come out of the dirt. You just go, cool, this is dead. And I'm just gonna walk away. Right? And oftentimes that's probably the best way to get them back if that's what you want. It just may take time, but don't wait around for it. Do not wait around for it.